Do you want simple steps to level up your mind, body, and spirit, or encouragement as you navigate the challenges of motherhood? Or maybe you need a dose of hope to achieve that goal? Then you've tuned in to the right podcast. This is Keep Blooming, and I'm your host, Liz Montigny. Each week, I'll encourage you to drop the hustle mentality for hope and act on the dreams God has put on your heart. I'm a licensed Ziegler life coach. I've created a theater ministry, and like you, I'm doing all the things as a Catholic, a wife, and a mom to 3 boys. So let's get growing and keep blooming. Hello, welcome to episode 36 of Keep Blooming. I'm your host, Liz Montigny, and on this episode, we are going to talk about the ultimate summer self-care glow-up. And no, I'm not talking about a super cute sundress or something amazing you can do for your body, but I am really talking about the true glow up, which is living with intention. So we're going to talk about 3 ways to do that. First, we're going to talk about not letting good distract you from great. Then we're going to talk about remembering the right order to life. And last, we're going to talk about the type of rest you truly need and the type of rest you don't. And I love that one. I had recently saw a post on, summer self-care, and it was a super cute post, but then it got me thinking, what is truly self-care? And that's actually lasting and not just, a little thing you do here and there. And that got me thinking about ultimately, what we want is a life by design and not by chance. And the way that you do that is living with intention and doing things consistently. And I think with any change of season, it's important to do like a little self-check-in, a little self-inventory, and it just kind of naturally happens that way for me. I think that's part of my faith life, but also it's just like seasonal living, right? So I thought this would be a good time to check in on that. And before we do all that, we are going to do our little abbreviated version of Lectio Divina. If you've been listening, I like to root our conversations in truth. So I bookend it with scripture. And this is Sirach, chapter 14, verses 13 through 16. Before you die, be good to your friends. Give them a share in what you possess. Do not deprive yourself of good things now or let a choice portion escape you. Will you not leave your riches to others and your earnings to be divided by lot? Give and take. Treat yourself well, for in Sheol there are no joys to seek. So I came across this scripture passage because I was actually doing a search for, where in scripture does it say to treat yourself well? And there it is in verse 16. And so I thought this was a really important reminder. And I like this too, because I talk about this with my clients a lot, like what is wealth to you? It's not just dollars, right? That's important, but what else? What are the other riches in your life? Relationships, goals that are important to you and so forth. And as I came across this, I, in the translations, because the standard is in writing and quoting the Bible is to use the USCCB version, which I'll be honest, not always my favorite interpretation. But I was really pleased to see in this particular interpretation, there was a notation on these verses. And the notation was, he advises generous enjoyment of God's gift of wealth before death. That really puts things into perspective, right? And I think that's super important to remember that you are a steward in this life. You are a steward of your talents because God gifted them to you. You are a steward of your children if you have them, because again, God gifted them to you. And even in your marital relationship, that is a gift. So he, meaning God, is being generous So how can you live into that? By simply enjoying it, right? And I think part of that comes with this living with intention that we're going to talk about now. So one of the things I wanted to touch on is not letting the good distract you from great. And this actually came up over the weekend. I went to a craft brewery with my husband on Father's Day after we did some stuff with the boys, and we just hung out, had a nice glass of beer, and just talked about some things with budget and things that we're hoping to do, goals and travel and things like that. And I brought up this concept with him of just reminding him and us to not let the good distract us from great. And here's what I mean by that. For example, the easiest example to give is a product, something you're planning on buying, right? And you're saving up for it, and you've done the research, and this is the thing that you would like, and it's got good reviews and all the things, right? But then something else comes along, and it's kind of like what you were looking at, but maybe it's cheaper, and you can get it now. So you go ahead and get that thing now, okay? But then when you get it, you're disappointed because it wasn't what you were planning on. It doesn't really do what you thought it was going to do. And it's just all around kind of a bummer, right? Whereas if you just held back, waited, and kept planning, and waited for that time when you were ready to get the greater thing, you'd be happier, right? And so that's just a really simplified version of our conversation. But don't let the shiny objects distract you from what you're really going for, what your goals are, where you think God is calling you to go. Don't get distracted. Keep your eyes on what truly matters, okay? The second thing that I want to remind you of when we're talking about living with intention is remembering the right order to life. Now, if you're Catholic like me, the right order is your relationship with God first, then your spouse, then your children, then all the other things like your career and your hobbies and your this and your that and your ministry and whatever it may be. That all comes later at the end, right? So I think a lot of our anxiety, the pressure we put on ourselves, the frustration we may feel comes from the fact that most of us are not remembering to live a right ordered life. So we are in disorder. So there's a lot of disarray in our life. So I think whatever you can do to take some time, maybe sit down with your journal and make sure that your priorities are in correct order, you will be more at peace. I know I was reminded of this back when I was really working my direct sales business years ago, and we had a speaker talk about this. And he said, your business should never come first. It should always be God, your family, then your business. And how true is that? And I know that I have been guilty, especially as an entrepreneur, of putting things in disorder. And so just a reminder, if you're prone to do that, don't beat yourself up about it, but be sure to have that check-in with yourself and make sure you're in that right order to life, because you are going to have more peace of mind, okay? And the last thing I want to share with you on living with intention is 2 types of rest. And I came across this amazing post from someone I follow on Instagram. Her name is Molly Belind, and she has what she calls a soft business mentor, and she's an IG expert. So if IG is your thing, go follow her. She's got some great stuff on there. But she was talking about a conversation that she recently had, and 2 types of rest. One is to recover, and the other one is a reservoir. And let me get into that a little bit. Rest to recover is talking about when you're going, and then you are forced to stop because you have to recover from working so hard or doing all the things that you are doing. And rest in a reservoir is more about that, where you can draw from, making rest as routine so that you have peace and calm, and you have that creativity, and you have something to draw from so that you can serve as well. And she was saying in this conversation with her friend that her friend reminded her, you need to make sure you're getting enough of the reservoir and not the recovery. I just thought that was so great, and I wanted to share with you because it was so succinct, and it's something I talk about a lot, rest as routine. And I think in the summer, we can get caught up in the fun and the play and the kind of like loosey-goosey schedules that some of us may have, and almost jam too much stuff in. So if you can practice holding that white space and then take that in to the fall and the winter, and building that rest as routine, that'll serve you so well going through the rest of the year. Speaking of the rest of the year, I want to remind you that time is short, and August 1st is my deadline to register for Restore Retreat. So speaking of rest, we are going to be doing a lot of different types of rest on Restore Retreat. And you have to register by August 1st. You know, July is going to fly by. So if you've been sitting on the fence, you got to hop off and get on the plane. So this is for women who want to reach their goals with grace instead of hustle. We're going to be in Sao Miguel, Azores, which is just a 4.5-hour flight from Boston. This is October 1st through the 8th. We have SoulCore Rosary in the morning, Masterminds with me, and then meals and adventures, all perfectly planned by a fantastic travel planner. So if you've been thinking about that, time to go for it. The link is in the show notes. So yes, living with intention is actually the ultimate summer self-care. I hope you can dive into this a little bit more with your journal, or just, taking some time to think about these considerations. And let's go back to Sirach. And again, this is chapter 14, verses 13 through 16. Before you die, be good to your friends. Give them a share in what you possess. Do not deprive yourself of good things now, or let a choice portion escape you. Will you not leave your riches to others and your earnings to be divided by lot? Give and take. Treat yourself well, for in Sheol there are no joys to seek. Treat yourself well, my friends. I will talk to you next week. Next week, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what happens after the podcast is on a little break for the month of July. I will be coming back in August, bigger and better than ever. And I can't wait to share more of that with you. And I have a lot of exciting things planned for the fall as well. So let's get growing and keep blooming. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Keep Blooming. Tune in every Wednesday for a dose of hope and encouragement. You can find this podcast on Anchor, Spotify, and Google and Apple Podcasts. To be the first to know about my upcoming retreats and latest offerings, be sure to hop onto my email list. Have a wonderful week and remember to keep blooming.